Hello, I'm Jenny. I'm 16 now. I had a best friend named Carrie who is the same age as me. And you know what? Our friendship had come to an end when I found out the terrible secret of Carrie. It was a day like any other day. I asked Carrie to meet me at the swing in the park. This place is where we choose to be a secret base. I told her that my parents been arguing a lot and my mother thought he was cheating on her. I didn't believe it until I smelled the unfamiliar perfume on my dad's shirt. Is my dad really having an affair, Carrie? I sadly asked her. Carrie rubbed my shoulder. No way. Your dad probably just caught in the sprayer in the department store or something. You shouldn't jump to the conclusion that quickly. Your dad loves your mom. Anyone can see that. So don't worry. Before this incident, I have been really satisfied with my life. I'm attending a renowned university. My family is really happy. Despite being the only child, I didn't feel lonely, as I had my best friend Carrie as company. She was more than a sister to me. Regardless of the problems, I just dropped her a message, then she would appear and comfort me. All I thought, nothing would change. It all began when my dad was acting oddly. He often looked into his phone. Especially, he took his phone to the bathroom and stayed in there for hours. But when my mom asked him, he just shrugged and said his digestive had some problems. Then, when my mom was doing the laundry, she smelled an unfamiliar perfume on his shirt. She hurtled to him and threw his shirt into his head. She forced him to explain this issue. He denied everything and said it was just a work colleague perfume and she was overacting. That's why I arranged to meet Carrie to tell her about my family problem. She always knew how to comfort people. I felt comfortable telling her about this. Carrie was right. Maybe I had thought too much. I came home and caught my mom crying in the kitchen. She looked at me with her puffy eyes and sobbed. Something wasn't right. She said in tears, "I had a fight with your dad. He doesn't look at me like we used to." I sat down next to her and said, "Mom, let's stop overthinking. I trust Dad. He will never betray us." I stayed to comfort her for a while, and finally she calmed down. The next evening, Dad came home with a big bouquet of blue rose flowers, which is my mom's favorite flower. Then he cooked for my mom and me as an apology for making us sad. Mom looked touched, and she also apologized for misunderstanding him. I told myself that things would be okay now, right? For the next few weeks, my parents seemed to be fine, but on my mom's birthday, we invited Carrie and her mom for dinner. During the dinner, I knew that Carrie's mom looking at my dad and laughed at all of his dumb jokes. OMG. Was my dad having an affair with Carrie's mom? I felt like I exploded, but I couldn't say anything to Carrie. I didn't want to make her sad. After that day, I avoided meeting Carrie as much as possible, even the lunchtime at the canteen or after school. I didn't wait for her and walked home. But one day, she caught my hand and asked constantly, "Did I do anything wrong? Please tell me. Why are you trying to avoid me all the time?" I shouted, "I think my dad is having an affair with your mom, Carrie, and that's why I want to avoid you." "I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't accuse your mom, but it was enough. I smelled her perfume was the same scent that my mom smelled on Dad's shirt." I cried after that. "I'm sorry. I will come home and talk with my mom. I'm sorry, Jenny," she replied. After that day, I met Carrie and she said I was right. Carrie's mom had an affair with my dad. She looked so confused and said it was a month since his problem happened, but her mom claimed that they stopped the relationship. I felt like everything fell down to the crumble. I couldn't believe it. I bursted into tears, and Carrie hugged me and said everything would be okay. It was lucky to have a great friend like her. Both of us agreed not to tell my mom about this. My dad's adultery came to an end. So why did he make my mom be a broken heart? I tried to act normally and everything seemed fine. My dad was so sweet to my mom and even made a surprise for her in a luxurious restaurant. But then, one afternoon, I saw my dad walking around the garden and was calling someone. I heard my dad saying, "Okay, I come real quick." Then he got into his car and drove off. I decided to follow him, and it was soon clear where he was going. That was Carrie's house. So they lied to us. I saw him walking straight inside without knocking. Without a second thought, I picked my phone up and called my mom, saying, "Mom, Dad's having an affair with Carrie's mom. Now he's at her house. Come and join me. We confront together." 5 minutes later, my mom showed. She looked so sad and angry. I went straight to the front door and banged on it. We yelled, "Open the door. We knew about your dirty relationship." But suddenly someone spoke behind us. "Jenny, is everything okay?" We turned around and saw Carrie's mom standing there with her grocery bag on her hand. I was about to tell her to stay away from my dad, and then Carrie opened the door and gave us a confused look. "What are you doing? Your dad and me was fixing the dishwasher and heard someone knocking. Then I come to open." "I told you to call the plumber to fix it." "The plumber said he was fully booked today, so I think I can ask Jenny's dad for help." "Right, we are going home now to talk." My dad angrily swung his arm and said to my mom, "You're such crazy, jealous, and unreasonable. I can't put up with you anymore." This was my fault, not me. I tried to explain, but my dad said it was none of my business and kept shouting at Mom. At first, my mom sat there silently, but then quietly said, "Have you wondered why I do that? You've been having an affair with my friend." "Okay, if you keep on being this irrational, so let divorce." Then my dad left. I felt so terrible when my parents got divorced, and my mom was so broken. Right, I felt so bad when I told Mom about this. That night, I texted Carrie to meet up. I didn't come, but instead she called me. She said she was the one who called my dad to ask for the plumber's phone number, but all the plumbers were busy and he said he could come and fix it. This was strange. I guess that Carrie also felt tricky when being stuck in the middle of things with her mom and me. We agreed to give each other space till the thing cooled down. After that, my dad and Mom rarely said a word to each other. And Mom decided to move to her father's house for a few weeks to think everything over. I didn't want her to leave, but I also didn't want to stay home alone with Dad. So I went to stay with my friend. One night, I went home to pick up some clothes. I opened and turned the light on. The house was still like usual, but it was a bit cool because of the lack of the warmth of my family. My dad wasn't at home, so I rushed to my room and left home before seeing him. I didn't want to talk with him or stay home with him. Was he an adulterer? When I went down to my home to leave, I saw someone laying on my dad on the sofa and kissing him. I couldn't believe my eyes. He was such a liar. He took his lover to my house when my mom and I weren't at home. I yelled, "Dad, what are you doing?" They were startled and looked up at me. I couldn't believe my eyes. His lover was Carrie. It turned out my dad had an affair with Carrie, not her mom. I angrily yelled at my dad, "You're such a bastard," then rushed out of there. I was running with my tears. Was this Carrie who had been my friend for years? Why was it her? She ran after me and tried to explain. "Please accept this, Jenny. My dad and I were in love. He was bored of your mom. I'm sorry. I hope you..." What a betrayer. How can you think of destroying my family like that? No one can replace my mother. Why are you blaming your mother? "I love your dad, but I don't want to make it public. So when you suspected the perfume, I sprayed my perfume on my mother's body so you could misunderstand her. And now I don't need to hide anymore." Liar. Don't try to take Dad away from us. He belongs to my mother. Suddenly, Carrie's attitude changed. She smirked at me and said, "Hey, you just accept the truth. He is tired of your mother. The truth is, I will soon be your stepmother, my little daughter." Then she laughed like she was a winner. There were a lot of things happening that I felt dizzy, so I sat down on the pavement to calm down. I decided to tell my mom the truth. My mom cried a lot, but then thanked me for telling her. But everything didn't stop there. The next few days, I saw an odd thing. It was Carrie. She was hanging out with another guy. Was it Josh, my father's subordinate? I felt really strange, so I stalked them. They stopped at the coffee shop. I stopped and sneaked at the corner of the shop to hear their conversation. Carrie and Josh cuddled and talked. That old Dan is so stupid. How does he think he can leave his wife right away? My Carrie, you did a great job. Who the hell said he dared to fire you? Honey, don't be sad. Haven't we ruined their family now? And what does that little Jenny think she could be with such an old man? You know, that day I saw Dan coming home drunk and I took him home. When I got to Jenny's house, I found the clothes her mother left me and changed them so that Dan thought I was his wife. I knew Jenny was going home to pick her stuff that day, and that was it as she saw it. So my mother and I misunderstood my father. I secretly recorded a video of them talking and sent it to Carrie's mother. It turned out that she had been lying to me for a long time because of that guy. She did everything to destroy my family. It was unbelievable. When Carrie's mother knew her and her boyfriend's plot, she was furious. Carrie's mother knew her as Josh's girlfriend and apologized to me and my family for what Carrie had done. I sent the video to my mom and dad so they all knew about it. My father reported to the police to arrest Josh for his behavior and submitted evidence of his destruction of company property to the police. My mother understood everything and agreed to return home. You see, I lost my best friend. I almost lost my family. I realized that my mother and I did not trust my father, and my father did not really understand his wife and daughter. Therefore, trust and understanding in the family are very important for us to maintain a strong family relationship. What do you think? Thank you for listening to my story. Hi guys, I'm Cammie. I'm about to be 16 soon, but my life was just peaceful in the first 2 years when I was born. Then my little brother was born. He appeared and destroyed everything belonging to me. I always longed that this kid wasn't born and appeared in my life. If you are the first child like me, you are likely to feel that way. First, his existence made my parents care less about me than usual. At that time, I was only 2 years old, so I don't remember exactly. But I felt that way clearly during my growth. I encountered a lot of trivial trouble because I was the first child. Meanwhile, Ethan was forgiven for what he had done because he was still little and didn't know anything. We always fought over the last piece of pizza, and when he got the pizza, he would open his mouth widely and devour it in front of my face. Then my mom would smile and said, "My boy is growing up, isn't he?" But when I got it, my mom would be unsatisfied and said, "Cammie, don't be so greedy." He also sneaked into my room and stole the stuffed rabbit that my bestie gave me, and then he used super glue gel to stick 2 ears of the rabbit together. So, I also secretly took his game console and put it in the warehouse. This took my brother 1 week to find the console. In order to get revenge on me, he secretly put chocolate on my pants. Then I came to school with the pants. Only after my friends laughed and pointed at me did I know what happened. I had to take off my sweater and tie it around my hip to cover the chocolate stains on my pants despite the freezing weather. Therefore, I got my revenge on him by rubbing common nettle on his pillow. The next morning, his face turned red and it was so itchy. And it was still the day of the photo shoot, and since he vehemently denied being photographed because of his face, it took a while for the makeup artist to cover his red marks. He was so hilarious. My father is a politician, so sometimes we have to show up at photo shoots and act like a happy, harmonious family. I just pretend to be like that in front of the cameras, but in reality, I just want to kick my brother's ass. I couldn't get along with my naughty brother. Living with someone you hate isn't easy, and our jokes happen very often that our parents just ignore us. However, there is one thing that Ethan's really scared of. It was when I was 8 years old. My dad was watching Train to Busan when Ethan and I entered the room just in time for a close-up scene of a zombie eating crazily. I am a brave girl, so at that time, I found the film quite interesting, and then I sat down to watch it with my dad, but my brother is a coward. So at that time, when he saw that scene, he started to scream, run out of the room, and he hid under my parents' bed, cried, and rejected to come out in 2 hours because he thought he was in the sight of that zombie. So I knew his weakness. Not long after that, Ethan dropped the earphones I'd bought into the toilet. I had to use my hand to pick them up out of the toilet. And luckily for me, when Halloween was around the corner, I decided to learn how to do makeup on the internet to look like a zombie, and I tested it on my friends to see if they would be scared. Then, on Halloween day, I dressed up as a scary zombie. I put a hidden camera in his room and I hid in the closet. I even pretended to growl like those on the TV. When Ethan got in, he heard this sound, so he opened the closet, and I jumped out of it and pushed him down on the floor. Oh my God! He screamed all over the house and even peed his pants. And after several years, I've still kept that video to tease him. But after a short time, my brother played a prank on me, which was unforgettable. I had a crush on a boy named Joan in my class. He was really sweet and always peeked at me. So I was sure that he also loved me. And Valentine's Day would be a perfect day for me to confess my love to him, so I stayed up late to make chocolate for him. I put those chocolate cubes in a nice box and then put them in the kitchen. The next day, I brought the gift box and gave it to Joan at lunchtime. But I saw Joan be in shock when he opened it. There was a shameful childhood picture of me instead of heart-shaped chocolate cubes, which took me hours to make. Then there was a picture of me at the age of 12 that had a lot of pimples on my face, and a picture showing that I slept with my mouth open and saliva dripping onto the pillow, and one of me with a bowl of food poured up over my head. Then Joan picked up a piece of paper saying, "Really delicious, my sister." It was my naughty brother who had done all of this to me. But even though my friend kept saying I was cute in those pictures, I still wanted to punch my brother in the face really hard. One time, I wished God would bring it away from me as far as possible. That was what I wished, but I never thought it would be true. That was a normal evening. My family gathered together, but Ethan stuck his eyes to the phone screen, so my mom was angry and forced him to clean up the table. While he was cleaning, I saw his message on his phone from a person called Sophia. "All right, see you at the cinema at 8 p.m. It turned out he was going on a date. And then I planned to get my revenge on him because he dared to eat my chocolate. So I secretly followed him to the cinema. Because the cinema was close to my house, he walked there. He took a shortcut to the park, and I also walked to the park, but it looked really dark and there was no one there. When walking, I saw something bright under my feet, so I picked it up. It was Ethan's phone. I would definitely force him to do my things, and then I would give the phone back to him. When I came out of the park, I saw a black van parked there. Suddenly, I heard someone screaming, and I saw two big men dragging Ethan into the trunk. Ethan cried and fought back fiercely, but my weak 14-year-old brother was nothing to those two men. How dare they did this to my brother? He might be the most annoying kid on the planet, but he's my annoying little brother, and there was no way I was gonna let this happen. I immediately rushed forward and shouted, "Ethan, turn on zombie mode!" My existence startled the two kidnappers and made them drag my brother into the car even harder. But then suddenly, Ethan bit into the kidnapper's hand, causing him to bleed and painfully let go of my brother. The other guy pulled on Ethan's arm, but it was hard, and when he tried to push it into the car, Ethan took the chance to kick him hard in his crotch. At the same time, I called the police and told them to come here quickly. Then I saw the guy who Ethan bit on his hand coming to Ethan, so I shouted loudly, "Ethan, run away!" He ran quickly into the park, and that guy chased after him. But suddenly, I felt there was a hand going through my waist. It was the other man. He said, "It's time to go," then lifted me up and came to the trunk. I tried to scream and struggle, but he was quite strong, so he threw me into the trunk and locked me up inside. Luckily, he didn't keep the car key, but the one chasing after my brother did. At that time, I was very scared when the kidnapper kept screaming outside, but I was even more scared when Ethan might get hurt somewhere outside. Then suddenly, I heard his voice, "Hey, stop it!" Oh no, he was arrested. I was so worried that I looked outside the van and saw the boy running towards me, and next to him were two cops. They pointed their guns at the kidnapper to suppress him. Ethan was safe and came back to save me. I opened the trunk and jumped out to hug him. Ethan and I followed the police when we saw the other kidnapper handcuffed under a tree and chasing mosquitoes away in the dark with his other hand. And on the way back to the station, the police told me that while Ethan was in the van, he kept complaining that they were slow and unprofessional because they should have come to save me first. But my stubborn brother still said, I can run away on my own, but this girly sister just can't. This idiot kid couldn't have known that he'd have a sister like a warrior like me. My parents went to the police station to pick us up. It turned out that my father's rival had hired someone to kidnap Ethan and planned to use it to threaten my father so that he would not take part in the upcoming election. But thank God, we were safe. I used to wish my brother could disappear forever, but when I actually lost him forever, I was really scared, and he felt that way too. But of course, after all those things, we've still pranked on each other every day. If we don't do this, it won't be us anymore. However, I realize one thing. Maybe Ethan is an annoying boy, but he's still one of my family members, and I really love my family. I was kicked out of my house because my parents found their biological child. Imagine that you have an opulent life with a mansion and modern cars, then you suddenly become a beggar. How do you feel? I've just experienced that feeling. Let me tell you, I'm Leon, 17 years old. I intrinsically was born in a wealthy family, and I was also the only child, so my parents always pampered me. That made me be a spoiled man. Despite my old age, I was a first-year student in high school. Most of my friends were bad guys. Whenever we met each other, we always caused trouble. My group of friends and me often had a fight with others and splurged our money on a lot of raves. We always bullied and made fun of poor kids on the street. On a nice day, we had a fight with a group of black kids on a street. Then the police came and took us to the station. The truth was, I didn't scare at all, because same as usual, my parents would come and bribe those police or ask some powerful people for help to put up bail for me in a second. In the cell room, I still felt relaxed when being requested for a guarantee. I called my parents to come. After only a few minutes, my parents came. But when they arrived, they just coldly claimed I wasn't their real son. They found their lost biological son after several years, and I was just a mistake in the nursery. Then, they completed the procedure to bail all my friends out of the cell room except me, and they just walked away. I didn't believe this truth. These ridiculous things couldn't happen now. I screamed out my parents' names hopelessly, but that already left me. I was stuck in a detention room for 12 hours. Then, a girl named Jade entered the station. She claimed that she had witnessed the fight yesterday when coming to her home from work, and I was released. She was familiar to me. Maybe I'd met that girl before. It turned out she was a waitress at a fast food store called Mandy. That was the store I dropped by a few times, but when I saw her poor appearance, I thought she was not on the same level. And with my arrogant contempt, I didn't care or thank her. After leaving the police station, I rushed to my home and found out the truth. But when I arrived, the person opening the door for me was as young as me. My parents said he was their biological son who was lost for nearly 20 years. They said they didn't want to raise me anymore and asked me to leave their house. After saying that, they threw my clothes and belongings away and closed the door. As hard as I screamed, the door still closed. They really abandoned me. I had to bring my belongings alone and got out of the house. I was so sad and disappointed. And you know what is more terrible than being kicked out of the house? All my ATM cards were locked by my parents, and I couldn't spend that money anymore. With all the cash I had in my pocket, I quickly spent all of them in just 3 days. During my poverty time, I turned to my old friends to lend some money. They were my buddies. I believed that they would save my life. All my expectations were wrong. After knowing that I was not my parents' biological son, their behavior changed and also hit me to make me go away. They only played with me because I had a rich family. I was so angry and hungry as well. I was wandering and stopped at the food store where Jade was working. Dad was ashamed. She saw me. Maybe she saw me stooping in front of the store in continuous days, so she sympathized with me. Every day, Jade often brought me a hamburger, chips, or leftovers in the store. That was so offensive to me. I used to be a rich kid living in luxury. Now I had to live like a beggar. Because I wanted to save my appearance, I denied everything. You don't eat? Jade was patient with me and put the food next to me. Waiting for her to go, I leaned forwards to pick up the food in shame. Passerbys misread me as a beggar and threw some coins towards me. That was totally a shame. A few days later, the store closed. Jade stepped to me and said I could come to her place to stay if I didn't have anywhere to go. I was so embarrassed about the rude behavior I'd done to her. Because of my big ego, I was a bit reluctant. But it was enough for me to suffer from being homeless. I didn't want others to look down on me and sleep on the street all my life. There was no choice for me. I had to follow her to her home. When arriving in there, I was in shock. Jade's house was in a slum near the river of the city. It was small, filthy, and dark compared to the house where I used to live. But I didn't have anywhere to go, so I had to stay there. And I was so broke, there wasn't much money for me to use. I had to work with Jade to earn a living. I applied for handing out flyers in the pizza store where Jade worked. For the first time in my life, I had to work in order to make money. Earning a living was more difficult than spending money. On some cold days, I had to stand still outside until my foot was exhausted and I was so starving. On some days, my old friends came, but they just threw the money on the ground. I had to hide my anger and pick up those coins. Even though the job was hard, the money I earned was a little. My salary in a month was as much as my dinner with friends in the past. That time, I realized the value of money. During the time I lived with Jade, my parents didn't care about or even send me some money. Maybe it was enough for them to put up with my mischief. Now they knew that they had their real son, so they just cared about him. They already forgot their spoiled child like me. Thinking about that, I was so heartbroken and regretful. After 3 months, I lived with Jade and made money. We were closer to each other. Gradually, I realized that she was a kind and strong girl. In any hard circumstance, she always got over it and lived happily. Jade taught me how to cook, how to save my money, and to be humble. Those were things that I'd never known before. When experiencing the life of the poor, I realized the difficulties. I felt like I changed a lot and completely became another person. I also realized an important thing. I fell in love with Jade, and I knew she did feel the same way. I prepared a plan to confess my feelings to her on her birthday. I secretly made a cake and expressed my love to her. OMG, I was on cloud 9 because she agreed to be my love. I thought my life like that would be enough. Jade and I did our best to save our money to have a wedding and a small and happy family in the future. And one day, my old naughty friends dropped by the store where I work to annoy us this time. It was too much for them to tease Jade again. I couldn't stand seeing my lover being teased, and within a moment, my anger exploded. I rushed to hit those guys to protect her. During the fight, I cut one of the group's faces, causing his face to bleed. The owner knew the scuffle, so we were fired on that day. Because of losing our jobs, Jade and I had to go everywhere to find a new job a few days later. We didn't see those guys come and bother us again. Everything cooled down. One day I received a message with a video. Oh no. Those guys damaged all the furniture in our house and even crashed our house with their car. Jade and I rushed to our house, but they'd gone. Both of us were so in shock when seeing our furniture and house be damaged. Jade cried a lot because those were the possessions she had in many years. We just tried to find valuable things in the rubble and hoped to keep something more. While rummaging, I found a pile of documents. There were some important papers and a contract having my dad's name and Jade's name on it. I was really curious, so I opened. In the contract, it said they would give Jade $20,000 to arrange my problem, and she would take care of me while I was kicked out of the house, and she guaranteed that she would make me change myself. Besides, in the contract, it also mentioned a person to pretend to be their biological son who I met at my house when I came back from the police station. My anger was burning. Jade lied to me. It was an arrangement. She just treated me well because of money. She wasn't kind, and even she didn't love me. I shouted loudly, which made Jade startled and scared. I quickly picked up the contract and rushed to my house to ask my parents all those things. Parents admit everything written in the contract was true. They arranged to teach me a lesson about playfulness, wasteful spending, and mischief. After hearing that truth, I was extremely angry. I made off from home for 1 week. My parents and Jade tried to find me everywhere. A lot of calls came and they tried to convince me to go home, but I canceled all those calls. After many days, I wandered on the street and became homeless again. I had more time to look and think of myself again. If there wasn't the plan my parents had created, I might be a spoiled child who didn't value the money. Without Jade's help, I wouldn't have learned many lessons about life like that. I knew I was wrong. I came back home and then I apologized to my parents and became their child again. I realized that Jade really loved me. It was not for $20,000 from my parents, and I proposed to Jade again. She said yes. Speaking of my bad old friends, they were in jail to pay for their bad behavior, and I sat the graduation exam again and continued to attend college. I feel that I have changed myself a lot and been more mature than I was in the past. I also took Jade to my home in order to live with my family. We are planning to have a wedding in the future. Hello, my name is Livia, and the truth is that I really hate my sister. Now, I'm 16 and my sister Lena is 17. When we were little kids, we were never close. She always hated me as she resented me for being born and stealing the attention away from her. She always used to ask me to do her things and hit me when Mom wasn't looking and steal my stuff. Now, when we are teenagers, she still does all those things and even more badly. She's definitely a horrible person. Because of this, I become popular and have more friends than she does. Living with Lena is hard, so to help myself with my problems, I keep a diary where I write down all my thoughts and feelings. I find that it's really helpful to cope with everything. I always knew that if the diary was in Lena's hand, it could get me into a lot of trouble, so I hid it under the floorboard under my bed. Lena would have no clue about my secret spot to hide things, but I'm also worried because it was just my thought. One morning, I came back from a sleepover at my friend Key's house when I found out the floorboard had been removed and my diary had disappeared. I was so shocked that I almost vomited. This was so bad. I ransacked everywhere in my room just in case I'd left it out by accident, even though I knew this couldn't be true because I was very careful with it. Then Lena appeared in my bedroom door and said, "Are you looking for something?" I definitely freaked out when she was holding my diary. I always think that I'm a good person, but I just did some bad things that I'm not proud of. I've learned from my mistakes and tried my best to be a better person, but I've written all of the bad things I've done in the diary, and now my evil sister knows everything. She opened it and began reading out the passage I wrote about the time I was super drunk at a party. It was so stupid that I kissed my friend Key's boyfriend. I tried explaining to Lena that it happened 2 months ago, and you get a huge mistake. But she just smirked at me. She told me that she would tell Key what I did unless I did exactly what she demanded. I didn't want to agree to do anything, Lena, but I thought I didn't have a choice. She has been my best friend since middle school, and I didn't want to lose her. For the next few days, I felt so bad that Lena had kept all my secrets to command me to do all of her chores, such as cleaning up the dishes and throwing the trash out. But I knew this was just the beginning of her commands. One time I got home from school. When I got into the house, my parents were worried and said their ATM card was gone. That time, a phone notification told us that someone had spent $100 from it. I ran into my room and saw my sister was already there. She gave me my parents' card and told me to return it to them. She forced me to tell them that I was the one who stole it. I turned down that, but she pulled out my diary and smirked at me. I had no choice but to do it. I told my parents that it was because I really wanted this pink dress, so I'd stolen the card. My mom looked quite shocked and constantly asked me if it was true, because she knows I am a good kid. She sighed and forgave me because I had the courage to confess what I'd done, but she also looked very disappointed in me. Then, on the weekend, when I was mowing the lawn, the guy next door called me from over the fence. He told me that he had 2 tickets to the cinema in the evening, and he asked if I wanted to go with him. I accepted the invitation, but the conversation must have been seen by Lena from her bedroom window, because no sooner did I get inside, she stopped than me at the door and forced me to tell the guy that I got sick, so she would go instead of me. And the commands continued to go on and on. She told me that she hated a girl at school and that she had a plan for me to do. The next day, during lunch break, she pretended to pour her soup on that girl's dress by accident. Then she apologized to her and took her to the bathroom to buy time so that I could steal the girl's homework and throw it away from her. This impossible mission happened perfectly. No one was skeptical about anything, so I was so relieved. I was very anxious because I didn't do anything like this before. Then at the end of that day, I saw that girl crying, and I felt so bad, so I need to stop this before it was too late. So I skipped the rest of the lesson that day so I could go home early and start to ransack Lena's room to look for the diary that she'd stolen from me. I looked everywhere, but I didn't see anything. My evil sister wasn't that stupid enough to keep it in the house. But if the bad thing was my sister knew that I'd been in her room and she told me that I have to suffer a punishment, that I have to cut my waist-length hair to my chin. Otherwise, she would not only tell everyone that I kissed Key's boyfriend, but also that I stole that girl's homework. My hair's been growing out for years, but she ruined her own hair by using hair bleach wrongly. She forced me to cut my hair because of her jealousy. While I was walking to the hair salon in the town, Key called me. I started crying and told her that Lena was threatening me because she had read my diary and that she forced me to cut my hair. Before I arrived at the hairdresser's, Key had been waiting outside. She told me that this was wrong and that I should only cut my hair whenever I wanted, not because my sister was forcing me. She also told me that Lena would never stop doing this. She just kept commanding me to do more and more crazy things. I knew that Key was right. Couldn't continue doing like this. I was constantly afraid of what Lena was going to force me to do. As I came back from the salon, Lena was laying in my room. She was wearing my favorite jumper and she was eating a bag of chips on my bed and getting crumbs all over my bedroom. I put up with her enough. I was so angry and told her that I wouldn't do it anymore and then I would be responsible for what I did. I knew that I needed to confess what I'd done to the people I hurt before Lena contacted them and said to them first. I was worried that they would hate me and thinking of losing my friends was terrible, but it was the right thing for me to do first. I had to find Key and tell her what I'd done. I was so nervous. I really hoped she forgave me. I came to her house and told her that I'd kissed her boyfriend. I also said that my sister had stolen my diary and used it to threaten me to do many bad things. At first, she was freaked out because of what I'd done to her boyfriend, but finally, she forgave me because those things had gone. And she had also split it up with her boyfriend before I kissed him at the party. After I'd solved the problems between me and Key, I went to find the girl that Lena had forced me to play dirty tricks on her. Then I apologized for having stolen her homework and making her be punished. She knew I was Lena's sister, so she understood everything was planned by my sister, and she also forgave me. And as for stealing my parents' ATM card, I also told my mother about this. And her mother also forbade her to step out of her room for a week to think about herself.
and subscribe. Answer my question.